for this session titled Blockchain Technology and its Impact on International Trade, we would like to invite our distinguished panel of speakers. First of all, may we invite Mr. Alan Laubsch, Director, Natural Capital Markets, and joining him is Mr. Armin Osmancevic, Co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of MyBazaar, United Arab Emirates, and also Mr. Farzam Ehsani, Blockchain Lead of Rand Merchant Bank, South Africa. And also like to invite our moderator for this session is Mr. Daniel Sieberg, ladies and gentlemen, the author of The Digital Diet and co-founder of the News Lab Google from the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our distinguished panelists and moderator for the session of blockchain technology and its impact on international trade.
All right. This is the time of day where I feel like you have to look at your watch and make sure, is it good morning, good afternoon? This is good afternoon. My name is Daniel Sieberg. It's lovely to be here with you. I have an esteemed group of panelists with me, and we're here to talk about blockchain and international trade. A note about, just really quickly about me, I recently left Google about 2 or 3 weeks ago and have joined a company called Civil, which is all about news and the blockchain. But I am still trying to wrap my head around what it is exactly and the potential for it. A quick poll of the room. How many people here feel like they know exactly what blockchain is and could explain it to their mother? No hands? Okay, that's all right because we're all in this together. We're all trying to figure this out and the potential for it. And in the roughly 41 minutes that we have, we will not answer all of your questions about what blockchain is. However, our goal here today is to leave you with an element of curiosity so that you can go off, ask your own questions, see how this applies to you, to your enterprise, to your interests, and that's the purpose of what we're here to do today. So, without further ado, I'm going to ask each of my panelists up here, our panelists, to introduce themselves, keep it tight to about a minute or so, and then we'll get into some questions and go from there. So, Alan, would you like to start?
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Alan Laubsch, and I'm with a blockchain startup called Like. And we have a very simple mission, and that is to build one global marketplace for all assets, right? Powered by blockchain. And so why is this important? You know, and what is blockchain, right? Well, blockchain really is the next generation of the internet. The internet of information changed how we exchange information. What's emerging is a much larger next generation of the internet of trust. And that changes how we exchange value, right? So just like Google changed how we exchange information, how we look for information, we now are going to be able to exchange value in a totally different way. So that's our mission at Like. And very briefly, what does a sustainable global market look like? It looks like this: a marketplace where anyone can trade without friction with 0% transaction fees, where value exchange will become free, just like the exchange of information. And also to create new assets, to list new assets that have positive externalities, assets that are good for the world. So that's my mission at Natural Capital Markets, is actually to list and make real the world's largest asset class, the ecosystems that make life possible, like the mangrove trees that you can see across the river and the rainforests that produce oxygen, sequester carbon. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Alan, Farzam.
Thank you.
My name is Farzam Ehsani. Good morning. I think it still is. I am the blockchain lead at Rand Merchant Bank, which is the investment banking arm of First Rand Group, the largest bank in Africa by market cap. I also serve currently as the chairperson of the South African Financial Blockchain Consortium, which is a consortium of 55 financial institutions in South Africa, looking at this technology to see how it can change the financial system, not only in South Africa, but beyond. I look forward to spending the next few minutes with you.
Great. Armin.
Assalamu alaikum, Sarawak. Apa khabar? Nama sini Armin. I'm a global CEO and co-founder of MyBazaar. MyBazaar is a cross-trade marketplace helping out the small businesses, SMEs and micro SMEs, as well as single entrepreneurs to use the digital technology and to gain the chance of technology in order to improve their businesses and their everyday life. At MyBazaar, we are basing our products and services on a blockchain technology, not in terms of cryptocurrencies only, because few of those already exist. We are, in fact, implementing the blockchain into the very fabric of our business logic. And this will allow us to increase the efficiency, to remove the middleman, to make faster transactions, and to actually improve the communication between the sellers and the shoppers. To that extent that we can allow sellers to be verified and their products to be verified by the shoppers directly, and also to reimburse the money through digital currencies to them immediately. If there is any kind of refund to be done, then we can immediately repay back to the shoppers. So blockchain, as you will hear here, is not only about currency, but so many other verticals as well, and other possibilities.
Armin, thank you. So these three gentlemen up here are among the world's foremost experts on the potential for blockchain, and my role here is to squeeze as much of that knowledge out of them in the next 36 minutes. So for folks who are sitting here in the room and they hear about blockchain, they have a business of some kind, and they think, should I be wedging my business into blockchain? Am I going to miss the boat here? Is there a sense of FOMO? I think Farzam uses the term FOMO. We're going to miss out on whatever blockchain is exactly, and how do I think about it? What's the right way for anybody here to think about the way their business might work with blockchain? And is it too late, too soon? What would you say? Farzam, I'll start with you.
Sure. So I think blockchain technology, as we kind of saw from the earlier poll in the room, is still a very misunderstood technology. And actually, a lot of people are using it in their marketing to say we are launching a blockchain product, etc. I think one needs to be very careful in understanding what is being done in the name of blockchain to really understand if it represents the qualities that make blockchain so powerful. So if we think today what one of the largest manifestations of a blockchain are these things that we call virtual currencies or cryptocurrencies. And I'm going to just say a couple of things about this because it impacts businesses, it impacts our financial systems, our nations in very big ways. And it's because today we all deal with money. But money today is effectively constrained at the nation-state level. Most nation-states have their own central bank that control the money supply in that country, but as soon as you cross the border, you're in the realm of another central bank with a new type of currency. But what cryptocurrencies do are actually questioning the very nature of our economic and social systems of a nation-state, asking why does money need to only be at a nation-state? Is it not possible to look at tokens of value that are transnational, trans-border, that facilitate trade across borders in a seamless way? And one thing or a statement that I often like to say to get people thinking is that today we talk a lot about cross-border payments. And I put it to you that in the future, and in fact already today, the notion of a cross-border payment is as absurd as the notion of a cross-border email. Emails don't pay any heed to where you are. It doesn't make any difference. Soon enough, payments will be the same. And so I'll pause there. There's lots to talk about. But this is not just a small fringe element that is affecting a few crypto and cyber geeks. It is what we're seeing is the beginning of a transformation of our entire ecosystem of how our financial world works, of how our identity worlds work, how our ecological worlds work. And so if there's anything you should take out of this session today is to know that this is a technology that will profoundly change your worlds over the next couple of decades.
Farzam, thank you. I want to build on that, and Alan, I want to go to you. So when people ask me about blockchain, Sometimes I sort of default to talking about Bitcoin. I feel like, have you heard of Bitcoin? Oh, Bitcoin, okay. And then sometimes I feel like this Bitcoin is sort of eclipsing all of the other potential for what we're talking about. And people get fixated on the price of Bitcoin and what it's doing and all of the rest of it. But that it's kind of blocking out a lot of the other potential. So to Farzam's point, help us understand what some of the other potential is for blockchain.
Sure. I think it helps to start with an article The Economist published on the cover in October 2015 called Blockchain, the Trust Machine, right? And when you read the article, it's really interesting because the implication is that this is not just the hottest new technology since the internet. This could be the most profound innovation since the invention of double entry bookkeeping, right? So this is how important it is. What is blockchain? You know what, honestly, none of us really know because we're at the beginning. We don't know what the implication is. We can talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum, this or that, but all we know is that it will have profound implications in changing our world, right? And you know, my recommendation here is what the WAS inspired us with a few days ago. Be curious. Be curious about the potential transformation, right? Now, why are people so excited about Bitcoin, for example? You know, Bitcoin is just a currency. Well, okay, so what is actually a currency? A currency is a language, right, of value. Bitcoin has defined a new currency of language that people understand. It's a simple language. And, you know, then people are now excited because, wow, what's a universal currency? Gold. It's worth $8 trillion. Why? Because it's a currency for everyone on Earth. You can take a little chunk of gold anywhere in the world and exchange that. What if someone in the blockchain community is able to create the same thing virtually, right? Now that's just the currency part of it, where people think, oh, Bitcoin's going to be worth more than gold, $8 trillion. Could happen. My guess is someone in the blockchain ecosystem or a conglomeration of currencies will achieve that value of gold, $8 trillion, right? However, it's much more. This is just the currency aspect of it. And we'll talk about what the other implications are later. But I just wanted to kind of plant that seed.
That's great, Alan, thank you. And so, Armin, the theme of this panel is about tying blockchain to international trade. And I would love for you to help us understand how My Bazaar works, and particularly for folks who are here in Malaysia, you know, thinking about what it means for small businesses, for the exchange of goods and services. Give us a sense of what that means for people.
All right. Let me try to exemplify or bring it to the most simple form, because for a couple of months ago, I didn't understood myself this thing called Bitcoin and blockchain and all of that. So the biggest problem of the e-commerce or online trading is the trust, right? And what is blockchain providing? What is the most important thing with blockchain is the trust. So to exemplify that, blockchain is blocks of information that are verified by everyone in the network, everyone in the room. So let's say if the WIEF is your network, and I'm the new guy at the WIEF, you don't need to trust me, you just need to trust your network. You need to trust WIEF to verify that I'm a legit guy, right? So this way, transferring to e-commerce, if you want to buy something from someone who is in another country, who you never traded with before, and you don't know anything about these products, with the help of blockchain technology or a blockchain layer, you can instantly verify that this seller or those products are legit. So much so that it's not only the final product, but also you can basically audit the supply value chain all the way from manufacturing until it's delivered to the shopper. So this, in a way, disrupts completely the model of e-commerce today, removing all the middlemen, lowering the fees, or even removing them completely, allowing instant transactions and confirmation, and also, as I mentioned before, reimbursement or payouts to the sellers. For the SMEs, this means all the difference because they need a cash flow. And doing cross-trade it's a very cash-intensive business, meaning to say that banks are reluctant to give them the money or to fund them. So being a small guy, this allows you basically to start your business with a very few means, to grow it nationwide, and to go to new markets without heavy investments, right? So blockchain technology, if you use it in a proper way, it can mean all the difference in any business you do.
So one of the benefits of blockchain, as people talk about, is this decentralized nature, which these gentlemen have alluded to, that there is no central body that all of these transactions are going to. It's a very peer-to-peer type of an idea. Farzam, what does that mean for regulation? There's a sense that a lot of this is the Wild West right now, that there isn't really sort of a structured framework for a lot of how this is supposed to be monitored or tracked. Where is that at today? Where does that need to get to?
Sure. Before I talk about the regulation, I just wanted to comment on why this is so revolutionary, in a way to help everyone understand. When we talk about the digital world and the internet over the past 2 decades, we see how it's really transformed the world with the abundance of information, right? Anything digital can be copied and pasted effectively infinitely at 0 cost. So anything that becomes digital is really not scarce, right? And that's why when you have a picture on your telephone and you want to send that picture to somebody else, they receive the picture, but you also retain a copy. And so for communication, it's really great. But for monetary transfer, what's really important is that when I give you something, my money, I no longer have it. If we lose that scarce element of things that are meant to represent value, you have hyperinflation that leads to the destruction of a token of value. So why blockchain from the financial sense is so important is that if we think about the money in our world today, we have physical cash and we have digital money. 95% of the world's money today is digital. And the way we keep that digital cash scarce is by trusting institutions like banks and central banks and regulators to make sure that the debits and the credits add up and that those institutions don't just create money out of thin air on their ledgers. So the magic of what a blockchain does is that it's for the first time enabling humanity to create digitally scarce assets without requiring a trusted intermediary to make sure that it remains scarce. So when you think about Bitcoin, for example, there are 16.7 million Bitcoins in existence today. There will only be 21 million Bitcoins in existence. But we do not need to depend on any particular person or institution to keep it scarce, because the system itself, the protocol, keeps it scarce. That is something new. That is something powerful. And so when we talk about regulations, a lot of our financial regulators are trying to understand how this affects their financial systems. And one reason it does affect their financial system right now is that I can take my phone out of my pocket right now and I can send value from myself to anybody in the entire world for any amount at less than a US cent, and it could arrive at its destination in a few seconds, depending on which cryptocurrency that I'm using. Humanity has never, ever been able to send value that quickly and that cheaply. Traditional institutions simply cannot compete. So when you think about that, it changes the dynamics of remittances, of diasporas, how they interact with one another, of global commerce. And more central banks and regulators are realizing that this is something to be reckoned with. And so some of the regulation has to do with how these cryptocurrencies interact with national currencies. And so we'll start to see more and more these central banks requiring people or their banks reporting to them who is buying these cryptocurrencies, so they actually understand what the implications are for monetary and financial stability.
That's great. Thank you, Farzam. So we were talking earlier. We've been communicating with each other for the past few weeks. I feel like we're all from roughly the same generation. We grew up or came of age in our, I'd say, 20s, when the web, the internet was becoming this big, huge phenomenon that we know of today. And I, speaking personally, feel like I missed the boat a little bit in terms of capitalizing on that. I was a reporter. I watched all of these tech companies do something that I was not willing to do myself. And I think there's this sense of, should we dive in now? This feels like an opportunity we might have missed before with the internet. And but as you said, we're all still figuring this out. So Alan, I know you brought a few slides. I would love if you could go through those and just kind of illustrate to people some of the potential, because I think that will help just give people a sense of what we're talking about and why people are so excited about it.
Okay, sure. Well, while the slides load up, let me.
Yep, there they go.
Oh, there we go. Okay, let's start with this. So what is blockchain? Blockchain is something that allows us to build a global network of trust. For the first time, we can have a decentralized global network that really transcends borders, where, yes, there's no cross-border payment anymore, right? And it's powered by peer-to-peer technology. Another analogy is it looks like this. This is on this island, one of the rainforests. It's an ecosystem, which is abundant. And you know what? The seeds of these plants, that DNA for each of these trees is spread. And as long as there's a healthy ecosystem and some forests can grow somewhere, all of that abundance is there, right? And so the amazing thing is, then it makes us think about, what is value, right? We thought about, gold is that universal currency. It's real. We can always trust that no one prints gold out of thin air. Well, here's an idea. The real wealth that we have is this. It's natural capital, right? The natural capital services that we get, clean air and water and food, are twice the global GDP, right? Every year, $150 trillion. But we're not protecting it so well, right? There are these negative externalities of about $8 trillion a year because we're not paying for certain little things like carbon emissions, right? And with an investment of 1% of GDP per year for 10 years, we can protect all of that, all these ecosystems. So what we're doing is we're reinventing money backed by the real gold, backed by natural capital, right? So here we have the oceans. The oceans produce 60% of the oxygen that we breathe and sequester 80% of the CO2, right? And here's a plant that you can see. That's called blue carbon. You can see mangroves just across the river. They play an amazing keystone role. They're really good at sequestering carbon dioxide. Each tree produces enough oxygen for 3 human beings every day, right? And photosynthesis is such an amazing technology. It takes carbon dioxide, a waste product, strips out the carbon and grows from it, and gives us the oxygen to breathe, right? So what we've done is we've launched a tree coin backed by living mangrove trees. They're planted in Tor Heyerdahl Climate Park in Myanmar, right? That's a tree. It cost $1 to plant that tree. If that tree grows to be 20 years old, it will have had an impact of $1,000 in global climate change, in local biodiversity and community development, right? So it's such a simple idea, right? In this project, they've restored 3.5 million mangroves in an area that had 84% devastation. And we're seeing wild elephants come back now. It's just amazing to see what this can do. And how can you participate? Anyone with a mobile phone can download our wallet. And with $1, anyone is empowered to actually invest in this, right? So this is just one small example of what can be done, right? So, this is what we're doing. We're starting a treevolution to restore billions of mangroves, and that's just the beginning.
I love the term treevolution. Yeah, please applaud. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, Armin, you've talked about My Bazaar and some of the potential for e-commerce. We've heard from Alan thinking about what this might mean for the environment. What are some other areas that people might be thinking about? I've heard everything from healthcare records to voting. What are the things that people might need to think about? How should we consider where this could fit into other aspects of our lives?
Yes. My background is digital marketing and fintech out of Sweden. I was privileged enough in the early 90s to go from Bosnia as a refugee to one of the 2 best countries in the world. which is Sweden, and the other is obviously Malaysia. Thank you. And I came in 1993. In 1995, I learned about this thing called internet, right? And at that point of time, it was the all new thing, like blockchain is today. There was about only 1,500 websites in the world, very limited. And one of our ministers, in fact, said, it's just a fly, right? But I was very curious to learn more. And quickly enough, like a year later, there was hundreds of thousands of these websites, right? And this allowed me to improve myself, improve my daily life, and yours as well, in so many ways. So looking at the blockchain technology today, I would ask you all to be curious about it and to explore more. Obviously, cryptocurrency is something that is the easiest approach to it at the moment. And I would say, will there be any bubbles? Yes, probably. Should you invest into learning more about blockchain? Absolutely. Why? Because blockchain has the possibility to become Internet 2.0, right? Some of the applications we can do is, for example, advertising, whereby being a part of the network, you can in fact immediately understand and see the value of the item that you're seeing in the peer-to-peer network, or you can even get paid for seeing the item or to clicking on the item, sharing the item, and even buying it. So in the terms of, I'm sure that some of you are familiar with the cashback models, right? You get cash from 2 to 4 months, but with the help of blockchain and the solution with the cryptocurrencies, you can get paid immediately for looking at some of the ads, some of the videos, and so on. So this is a direct peer-to-peer communication. Some other possibility of use is obviously to confirm the identities. Another one is crowdfunding, which is truly great solution. So if you're crowdfunding a blockchain-based initiative, then you can have a say in the product development because you are the co-owner, right? Which brings us to ICOs. And I'm sure one of my colleagues can explain more what the ICOs are.
Yeah, actually, Farzam, do you want to take that one? You know, so ICOs being initial coin offering for people who have heard IPO, that's sort of this is perhaps, I guess, the most relatable version of that for some people, but you can do a better job than I can, so please.
Sure, I think some of you have heard of this term ICO, and let me explain a little bit about what it is, because it's quite phenomenal when you think about what's going on. So there are many people or institutions right now that are raising large amounts of money, and generally when we think about raising large amounts of money from anyone, it's done in two ways. Either it's through equity or it's through debt. But in some way you have an obligation to the person or the institution that you've raised money from, whether you're going to pay them back as a loan or they have a stake or a claim on the proceeds of whatever you're doing through equity. So there have been a few initiatives where in the span of 24 hours, say a couple, a man and wife and their two dogs, have raised about $250 million US from the public without it being debt nor equity. So when you think about that, it should raise some questions, because why are people giving someone else their money when they have no claim to anything? And so this is the world of ICOs, where people are buying a token. All right, it's a digital token. Before I talked about digital tokens that are scarce, a lot of these are raised on what's called the Ethereum blockchain. But I think it's really important to be very, very careful in understanding what those funds are going towards. Because there's such euphoria right now, because people are thinking, oh, this is going to go up for sure, and a lot of money is being deployed into these ICOs, and there will be a correction. There will be a correction of some sort, and there have been in some of these. But some of these are going to take off in big ways. And why? It's because these tokens are being used as the currency for ecosystems, For example, right now some of you are familiar with Amazon Web Services or Azure, etc., where you can use a centralized institution to store some of your data. But there are some of these distributed applications where actually, through the use of these tokens, you can incentivize participants all over the world to host some of your data with this token of exchange. So they're quite intricate ecosystems that we're building. As was mentioned earlier, we're still only at the beginning of understanding what this world will come. But I would suggest to you two things. Number one is take note of what's going on in this initial coin offering space. But number two is be very careful and discerning in how you deploy capital. Because with the euphoric state that we're in, there will be a lot of venture money that doesn't yield much fruit.
So, and on that, I think that, you know, I have a tendency to paint this rather rosy utopian picture of blockchain, and I sort of hear that said to me, so I channel it back to other people. But somebody's got to be a little nervous or concerned about this or not happy about it. And Alan, I wonder if you could sort of identify who those people are and maybe some of the potential pitfalls of what we're talking about, whether it's a bubble or this doesn't work out, or there are maybe governments who don't like this, or banks. Who are the people who are looking at this and saying, ugh, please, let's not have this turn into something big because it's going to negatively affect whatever we're doing? What's the flip side of this for people who want to understand that?
Sure. Well, what technology is, what was defined it as, is it gives us choice, right? And that's value. So overall, we're seeing something that's very valuable. But all technologies have a dark side, right? Like the mobile phone that we look at too much, that can also impact us in a negative way. So it's important to realize that you know, technology does not give us the wisdom, right? Technology gives us power. So blockchain means that a lot of people will be empowered, but will we do the right thing with it, right? So in the end, we need to also work on elevating our wisdom. There's one thing that I want to mention right now, which is amazing. Bitcoin was a pioneer. It made everything possible. But right now, Bitcoin has carbon emissions that are bigger than most countries in the world because of a really, you know, the architecture of it is fundamentally flawed in scaling. The idea is you can never get more than 100% security, right? Bitcoin in 2013 was already secure enough that hackers, basically security experts, said, you know what, it's impossible to hack. Since then, right now, Bitcoin has grown so much that right now there are $2 billion of energy that is being burned just to mine Bitcoin every year.
And just quickly define mining, because I think that's a term that people hear.
Right.
And what does that mean exactly? Yeah.
So mining is just to provide the security of it. And the security is based on solving a really difficult mathematical problem that on average one computer solves in 10 minutes. So the difficulty gets harder and harder the more people compete for it. So right now, as the value of Bitcoin is really high, over $8,000, more people compete to win that Bitcoin. The mathematical problem will be harder, right? And we're basically burning more and more and more energy to provide security that is only going to get us to 100%. So here's this thing. Someone might say, Bitcoin's the most secure blockchain. Maybe, right? But it's very concentrated. You know, 3 miners are more than 50% of the hash power or the computational power. So it's actually vulnerable. And you might say that, you know what, Bitcoin is maybe 1,000 times more secure because of this network than a small coin like SolarCoin. But here's the idea. SolarCoin, with its existing network, is secure enough. What's the difference between 99.99% secure and 99.99999? It's like 1,000 times more. Do we need that security? No. SolarCoin can provide the adequate security to power a network of 20 million users for $200,000 of energy, mostly solar energy, compared to Bitcoin, right? So a message here to you is that we need to be wise about which Bitcoins we adopt, right? There are implications, and there's now a generation of blockchains out there that are faster, better governed, and also, I would argue, more secure, right? So be curious. Ethereum is one of them. You know, SolarCoin is another one of them. But there's a whole bunch, and it's worth researching that.
Armin, so some people are talking about how blockchain is perhaps what the internet could have or should have been 20 years ago. Does blockchain have the potential to replace the internet? Are they complementary in some way? And if you're thinking about your business on blockchain or even with MyBazaar, I guess the question people might have is why not just do it on the sort of traditional internet? What's the value of adding in something like the blockchain? And is the internet going to eventually go away as we know it? What's the experience like for people? It has a tendency to feel abstract for folks who haven't heard it before. So help us understand that.
Well, let me address this question both from Islamic perspective, but also from a human perspective, or from the global perspective. Obviously, Islam requires us for any currency to have intrinsic value, right? So you cannot create money or anything out of nothing, right? It has to be backed up by intrinsic value. At the same time, adoption of technology in Islam has been stopped, both the golden age of Islam and also the Ottoman Empire, by the means not accepting or refusing to accept foreign technologies, foreign ideas as well. Just a simple example is refusal to accept the printing press by the Ottoman Turks. For 362 years, the Ottoman Empire refused to use the printing press, and all of Europe moved on, and the rest of the world, while the Ottomans, stayed back, which ultimately caused the death of the Ottoman Empire. Meaning to say, it's a must, a wajib for Muslims to adopt the new ideas, the new technologies. Now, someone might say, we refuse to have an innovation, which is called bid'ah, right? But innovation doesn't mean it's only bad. There is a bad and good innovation, as someone mentioned yesterday. What is good and what is bad innovation? Innovation for the sake of itself is nothing. It serves only its own purpose. Like, I innovated something that serves me and no one else. But the innovation that is based on the needs to help humans, right? Need-based innovation. It's not bid'ah, it's something else. It's actually moving all of the humanity forward. Looking at all of the world, we have never been in a better shape than today. So everything has improved. For example, we used to live 35 years. Now we live up to 100 years. We used to work 16, 18 hours a day for just a few hundred years, and now we work 8 hours a day, right? We used to earn very few salaries. Now we're getting better and better. So everything is improved except one thing, which is the environment, right? So everything else has improved with the help of technology. Meaning to say, if we are open to new ideas, open to new technology, for 20 plus years to the internet, which some thought was a fly, now to a blockchain, which is in fact Internet 2.0, this allows everyone in the room to become an entrepreneur. And I can assure you that each and every of you and your children, inshallah, will become entrepreneurs. Why? Because there is a need. Why? Because this is a must. With the help of blockchain, what it allows is for me to become a single entrepreneur working with a network of other entrepreneurs and directly confirming the value of what they have to offer and what I have to offer. If I want to crowdfund my own business, I can do it on blockchain. If I want to check who is the person who is selling me the ingredients, the raw materials for my products, I can check them through blockchain. If I want to pay them or get paid, I can do it through blockchain, right? But being part of the network is also, again, about trust. So networks that are not controlled or not based on any rules or regulations are mistrusted. So there is controlled and uncontrolled. There's open and closed networks. Meaning to say, each and every of us can create our own networks. As I mentioned in the case of WIEF. So if we have a network of people we trust, right, then we can transact with each other. If this network is connected to another network, which we also trust, then we can transact to each other. So it's all about creating a networks of people and businesses as well, in order to transact each other and being a part of the blocks of information that is confirmed by each and everyone in the network, right?
Great, so we've got a little over 3 minutes left, and I'm going to give each of you 1 minute to summarize your thoughts on blockchain, international trade, the potential for it, whatever you'd like to say in a minute, and we'll start with Alan and work our way down.
Okay, good. So what I'd like to leave you with is, blockchain really is just the next generation of the internet for decentralized applications. It helps us build trust, right? Trust will help global trade, right? And this is something that is, on balance, going to be an amazing new thing to have, that in addition to centralized governments and centralized institutions, we also have a form of decentralization. And both are stronger. It's not one or the other. They make each other stronger as a whole, right? So my plea is this, that let's rethink what money is. Let's rethink what the real gold is. And if, as part of this new evolution of money, instead of just awarding the miners for security, let's think that positive actions can have value and that that's a currency as well. That impact, positive impact, can be an asset class.
Excellent, thank you. Alan. Farzam, please.
So I think I would leave you with a couple of thoughts. The first is that if we look at the history of the human race, our largest sense of identity has moved from families that used to feud to tribes, that used to feud to the city-state. And then right now we're at the nation-state. And the nation-state has only been around for about 400 years. And if we look at the yearning of humanity, if we look at the faces in this room, we come from all parts of the world, yet our systems, our money, our governance, etc., is still limited at this nation-state level. And what blockchain is doing through things like cryptocurrencies is really questioning whether that is the appropriate level of identity for humanity. And it is actually transcending the nation-state to see that if we can bring about the unification of the world in many ways, from commerce to currency to healthcare, etc. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, blockchain is a tool. It is dependent upon us on how we wish to use that tool. It's not a solution that is going to magically change our social issues. It is a tool that we need to think carefully about how to use to serve the needs of humanity.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you, Farzam. Armin, please.
Thank you for being here. It was a rather short session. However, I would like to send 3 things with you. Number 1 is don't be afraid of new technology, whatever that is. Internet of Things, blockchain, VR, AR, anything. So be very curious, read about it, reach out to other people. Number 2 is you don't need to be an expert. You just need to know enough so you can take your own decisions. Don't let others take decisions for you. Take decision yourself by learning, continuously improving yourself, and reaching out to not only like-minded, but also like-hearted people, and create benefits together. And number 3, reach out to me after this session. I would love to do business with each and every of you. I'm great at selfies, 100%. But to be honest with you, I'm much better with and more interested into doing business with each and every of you, because each and everyone should be entrepreneur. And with the help of digital technology, financial technology, blockchain, all of this, we can all be our better selves for the sake of humanity and bringing the benefits not to ourselves, but to the future generations.
I love that.
Thank you.
Armin, thank you. So I'm going to borrow an environmental analogy. I hope that we've planted some seeds that will grow into your own sense of curiosity and exploring this new area of technology. And I would love for you to just join me in thanking our panelists up here for providing their insights here today. Very generous for all of them to do that, and I love the way that they captured the sense of the potential for all of this, so thank you. I would argue that we saved the best for last. So thank you all for joining us here, and we're going to head off stage now and let the closing ceremonies continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Mr. Daniel Sieberg, the moderator for this session, the author of The Digital Diet and co-founder of NewsLab, Google, United States. And now may I invite our distinguished panelists on stage and our moderator for a group photo. All right, before we wrap up the session, and ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. All right, as the closing ceremony for the 13th WIEF will begin in short while, so please come and join us in a bit later. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our distinguished panelists and moderator for the final session, all right, for day 3, yes, the final day of the 13th WIEF here in Kuching City of Sarawak, Malaysia.